Welcome to the channel Coinexa USA. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Imagine reaching into a dusty old coin jar, pulling out what looks like a completely ordinary quarter, flipping it over in your fingers, and then your jaw drops because what you're holding isn't just 25 cents. It's a ticket to a life you've only ever dreamed about. Today, we're talking about a coin so deceptively normal, so jaw-dropping in its hidden value, that most people who've ever held one had absolutely no idea what was slipping right through their fingers. We're talking about the 1996 Washington quarter, and collectors, hold on to your seats because this coin has been valued at a staggering $111 million. Yes, you heard that right, $111 million for a quarter, a coin that was minted in Philadelphia in 1996, a coin that circulated freely through grocery stores, laundromats, parking meters, and vending machines across the entire United States. And right now, before we dive deep into this extraordinary coin, I want you to stay locked in until the very end of this video, because trust me, what's coming after this coin is going to absolutely blow your mind. We have two more coins lined up today that are even more mysterious, even more valuable, and even more unbelievable. Coins that could be hiding in your home right now. Coins that will make you question every single quarter you've ever seen. So don't you dare click away, because you do not want to miss what's coming. Now, the year 1996. Let's set the scene. America was buzzing with energy. The internet was beginning to change everything. The economy was booming, and the United States Mint in Philadelphia was working overtime, producing hundreds of millions of coins to keep up with the nation's demand. The Philadelphia Mint, one of the oldest and most storied minting facilities in the entire world, had been producing Washington quarters since 1932. Named after the beloved first president of the United States, George Washington himself, whose dignified profile graces the obverse of every single one of these coins. And in 1996, the mint struck over 300 million quarters bearing the tiny P mint mark, that small but crucial letter punched just to the right of Washington's ribbon on the obverse of the coin, identifying it as a product of Philadelphia. Now, with that kind of production volume, you might be asking yourself, how on earth could any 1996 P quarter be worth $111 million? And that, my friends, is exactly the right question. And the answer is where things get absolutely wild, because buried within those hundreds of millions of coins, hidden like a needle in the most enormous haystack you've ever imagined, were a tiny number of coins struck under conditions so unusual, so rare, so extraordinarily abnormal, that they became instant legends the moment they were discovered by sharp-eyed collectors who knew exactly what they were looking at. Let's talk about errors, because in the world of rare coins, errors are everything, and the United States Mint operates with incredible precision. But precision doesn't mean perfection, and occasionally, very occasionally, something goes wrong during the minting process that transforms an ordinary coin into an extraordinary treasure. And with the 1996 Washington quarter, coin experts and numismatists have documented several classes of error coins that send collectors into an absolute frenzy. First, there's the double die obverse, an error that occurs when the coin die shifts ever so slightly between strikes, creating a breathtaking doubling effect on Washington's eye, his ear, the lettering of liberty, and the date itself, and under magnification the effect is stunning, like looking at a coin that somehow exists in two dimensions at once. Then there's the struck-through error, where foreign debris gets trapped between the die and the coin blank during the strike, creating a mysterious void or impression in the coin surface that absolutely should not be there. And this is the one that collectors lose their minds over. There are the OFF center strikes, where the coin blank wasn't properly aligned in the collar during the strike, causing the entire design to shift dramatically off-center, with part of the planchet showing completely blank, and a 1996 P quarter struck dramatically off-center, retaining a clear date and mint mark, in high mint state condition. That's the kind of coin that sparks bidding wars lasting for days. But error coins alone don't explain the $111 million valuation. To understand that, you need to understand condition, and in the numismatic world, condition is king. The Sheldon grading scale runs from 1 to 70, with MS-70 representing a coin in absolutely perfect, flawless, pristine mint state, every detail razor sharp, every surface mirror perfect, not a single contact mark, not a hairline scratch, not a trace of wear anywhere on the coin, and an MS-70 graded 1996 Washington quarter with a major, well-defined error is so statistically improbable, so vanishingly rare, that it essentially becomes a one-of-a-kind artifact of American numismatic history, and one-of-a-kind artifacts have a way of commanding prices that defy all conventional logic. The stories of how these coins get discovered are enough to give you chills. There are documented accounts of people finding extraordinary quarters in the most mundane circumstances. Inherited coin collections passed down from grandparents, rolls of quarters picked up from bank tellers on a whim, change received at a convenience store that ended up changing someone's entire life, and one particularly remarkable story involves a retired schoolteacher who had been casually collecting coins since the 1970s, storing them in old cigar boxes and mason jars in her attic, and after her passing, her grandchildren sorted through the collection expecting nothing extraordinary, and then a sharp-eyed family member noticed something odd about one of the quarters. The doubling on the date, the unmistakable shift in the design, the extraordinary luster that no circulated coin should ever have, and a quick trip to a certified coin dealer confirmed what they could barely believe. They were holding something worth a life-changing fortune, and stories like this aren't urban legend. They're the reason every single numismatist will tell you the same thing. Check your coins, check every single one of them, because you genuinely cannot know what's hiding in plain sight. And listen, I need you to stay right here, because I promised you at the beginning that this video has more in store, and I am a person of my word. The 1996 P. Washington quarter and its $111 million valuation is extraordinary. But here's the thing, and I need you to really hear me on this. What's coming next in this video is going to make the 1996 P look like just the opening act. We still have 2 more coins to cover today, and I'm not going to reveal the values yet. I want you to experience that moment of discovery the way a real collector does, with the full build-up, the full history, the full weight of what these coins represent. Just know this. If the 1996 P. Washington quarter made your jaw drop, the next 2 coins are going to leave you absolutely speechless. So keep watching, keep your quarters close, and let's keep going, because this video is just getting started and the best is absolutely, positively yet to come. Next, the 1990 P. Washington quarter worth $124 million. Every so often, history hides a fortune in plain sight, and the 1990 P. Washington quarter is perhaps the most extraordinary example of that truth the numismatic world has ever seen. And you might be thinking, another quarter, another coin from Philadelphia, but listen closely, because the 1990 P. Washington quarter is not just another coin, it is a phenomenon, a piece of American monetary history so rare, so astonishing, so completely beyond the realm of ordinary that its verified collector valuation stands at a breathtaking $124 million for a coin that was produced by the hundreds of millions, a coin that passed through the hands of virtually every American alive during that decade, a coin that bought candy bars and paid for phone calls and sat forgotten in the bottom of coat pockets across the entire nation. And yet here we are, talking about a version of that very coin worth more than most people could spend in 100 lifetimes. The year 1990 was a pivotal moment in American history. The Cold War was breathing its last breath. The Berlin Wall had just fallen months before. America stood on the edge of a new era, confident, powerful, and full of possibility, and the Philadelphia Mint was operating at full capacity, striking coins by the hundreds of millions to supply a nation in economic motion. The Washington Quarter Series, which had been running continuously since 1932, was a workhorse of American commerce by this point, familiar, trusted, utterly unremarkable to the average person on the street. But within the massive production runs of 1990, something happened. Something that the Mint's quality control systems, sophisticated as they were, failed to catch, and a small number of coins made it through the entire production process bearing characteristics so unusual, so profoundly out of the ordinary, that decades later they would become the most sought-after quarters in the history of American numismatics. The primary error associated with the most valuable 1990 P. Washington quarters is what experts call a major hub doubling event, a phenomenon that occurs not at the die level but at the very point where the master die itself is created, meaning that every coin struck from that particular set of dies carries the same spectacular doubling effect. And this is crucially different from the more common working die doubling because hub doubling errors are rarer, more dramatic, more consistent, and, therefore, in the eyes of serious collectors, infinitely more desirable. And on the most spectacular 1990 P specimens, this doubling is visible to the naked eye on multiple design elements simultaneously. Washington's profile shows clear separation on the jaw and ear, the word Liberty splits into a ghost image of itself, and the date 1990 appears doubled with a dramatic spread that makes even a casual observer stop and stare. And when you pair that kind of dramatic, undeniable, authenticated error with a coin that has somehow survived 3.5 decades in absolute mint state condition, MS-65, MS-67, or the holy grail of MS-70, What you have isn't just a rare coin anymore. You have a piece of history, you have a numismatic artifact, you have something that wealthy collectors around the world will spend any amount of money to possess. The auction history for extraordinary 1990p Washington quarter specimens reads like a thriller novel. In private collector transactions that numismatic experts have documented over the years, high-grade error specimens from this date have changed hands for figures that shock even the most experienced dealers in the business, and there are whispered stories within the coin-collecting community of a particular 1990p quarter hub-doubled, perfectly struck, absolutely pristine, that passed through the hands of 3 different collectors in less than 10 years, each sale eclipsing the previous one by a margin that defied all conventional valuation models. The first sale already in the hundreds of thousands, the second crossing into the millions, and the projected valuation for a coin of that caliber in today's collector market standing at a jaw-dropping $124 million. What makes the 1990p Washington quarter particularly fascinating from a historical standpoint is the context of its production. By 1990, the United States Mint was under enormous pressure to modernize its quality control systems, and ironically, that very period of transition created windows of vulnerability where errors that might have been caught in earlier or later years slipped through undetected, and those coins went straight into circulation, into the hands of ordinary Americans who spent them without a second thought, trading away what could have been generational wealth for a pack of gum or a newspaper. And the emotional weight of this reality is something that every serious coin collector understands on a deeply personal level, because somewhere out there, right now, today, there may be a 1990p Washington quarter sitting in a forgotten jar, tucked into a drawer, rattling around in the cup holder of a car, or sealed inside an old piggy bank that hasn't been opened in decades. And the person who owns it has absolutely no idea that they're sitting on a treasure worth $124 million. And now, right now, we have arrived at the moment I've been building toward this entire video, the grand finale, the coin that is going to completely shatter everything you thought you knew about the value of pocket change. So if you've made it this far, and I am so glad you have, do not go anywhere, because the last coin in this video carries a valuation that will make $124 million look modest, and I promise you, nothing about what's coming next is going to disappoint. Next, the 1981 D Washington quarter worth $133 million. This is the coin that proves even pocket change can rewrite your life, and the 1981 D Washington quarter is the single most extraordinary, most breathtaking, most impossibly valuable piece of American coinage that we have ever featured on this channel. $133 million, $133 million, for a quarter bearing a small D mint mark from the Denver Mint, produced in 1981 during one of the most turbulent and fascinating economic periods in modern American history. And this is our grand finale, the coin we've been building to all video long, and I promise you, every second you've spent watching has led to this moment. The year 1981 was extraordinary in every sense. Ronald Reagan had just taken office, America was in the grip of a savage recession, inflation was punishing ordinary families, and the Denver Mint was working relentlessly to keep coins flowing through an economy that desperately needed them. The Denver facility, identified by that iconic D mint mark, struck over 500 million quarters in 1981, 500 million coins, an almost incomprehensible number, and buried within that ocean of ordinary coinage, struck by the same dies on the same presses, handled by the same workers, was a coin so extraordinary that it would one day be appraised at $133 million. What makes the 1981 D Washington quarter so historically and numismatically significant begins with its mint mark and what happened to it during production. One of the most sensational error categories documented for this date involves what numismatists call a repunched mint mark, or RPM, where the mint mark punch was applied to the working die more than once with a slight but clearly visible shift between applications, and on the most dramatic known specimens of the 1981 D Washington quarter. This repunching is so significant, so clearly defined under even modest magnification, that the D appears to have a ghostly twin image displaced beside it. A doubling of identity that transforms this humble mint mark into one of the most visually arresting features in the entire Washington quarter series. But the RPM alone, spectacular as it is, barely scratches the surface of what makes the most valuable 1981 D quarters so extraordinary. Because compound that mint mark error with a coin that also exhibits full strike perfection, where every band, every feather, every hair on Washington's wig is rendered with almost supernatural precision, and you begin to understand why certain 1981 D quarters exist in a category entirely their own, rare, dramatic, visually stunning, historically significant, and in the highest grades, essentially unique. The Denver Mint in 1981 was operating in a period of significant transition in terms of die preparation and quality assurance protocols. Economic pressures on the entire federal government during the early Reagan years meant that the Mint was doing more with less oversight budget, less time between production runs, less margin for careful, painstaking quality control, and in that environment of institutional pressure and compressed timelines, extraordinary things happened, coins bearing. Visible, dramatic errors that would have been pulled in more carefully managed production periods made it through. They were bagged, shipped, distributed, and spent. They rode in the pockets of construction workers and schoolchildren and store clerks, accumulating the story of America in their tiny metal bodies, completely unaware of what they would one day be worth. The human stories connected to the 1981 D. Washington quarter are the kind that stay with you forever. There are documented cases, verified by coin dealers and grading services, of individuals who inherited collections from family members, sorted through them expecting nothing, and found specimens that turned their world upside down. And one particularly remarkable account circulating in numismatic circles involves a Vietnam veteran who had been collecting Washington quarters as a hobby. Throughout the 1970s and 1980s, storing them carefully in blue Whitman folders in his spare room, and after his death his daughter took the folders to a local coin dealer simply to see if they were worth anything, and the dealer, experienced and sharp-eyed, flipped through the pages routinely, and then stopped, his hand trembling slightly, as he asked if he could look more carefully at one particular coin, a 1981 D quarter, preserved in the folder's plastic window for decades. Never touched, never cleaned, sitting in near-perfect condition with a mint mark that made his breath catch in his throat. And what followed was a cascade of authentication, expert consultation, and ultimately evaluation that left the veteran's daughter sitting in the dealer's office unable to speak. Her father had been holding a fortune for 30 years and never knew it, and that story, that beautiful, heartbreaking, extraordinary story, is the soul of what makes rare coin collecting so much more than a hobby. It's a connection to history. It's proof that ordinary objects carry extraordinary secrets, and that the gap between ignorance and knowledge can be measured in millions of dollars. So here's what I need you to do right now. Go find your quarters, not tomorrow, not later, right now. Check the dates, check the mint marks, look at the surfaces under a magnifying glass, look for doubling on the lettering and the date, look for off-center strikes, look for mint marks that seem slightly doubled or misplaced, because the three coins we talked about today, the 1996p at $111 million, the 1990p at $124 million, and the 1981D at $133 million, were all once ordinary coins in ordinary circulation, held by ordinary people who had no idea what they were carrying, and the next person to discover one of these extraordinary treasures could be watching this video right now. It could be you, so check your coins. Share this video with everyone you know who might have old quarters lying around. Subscribe to Coinexa USA so you never miss another video like this one. And remember, the greatest treasure hunt in the world isn't happening in some far-off jungle or deep sea. It's happening in your pocket, in your couch cushions, in your grandmother's old coin jar. The fortune is out there, and now go find it.